So Iloilo, to me, and I've said this for the last 8 years, 10 years, that it is the best example of what happens when national government, local government, the business community, and the academe work hand in hand very closely together to transform society, the local government environment. Bonifacio land prices have tracked the GDP for the last 20 years, right? And with only one exception, every time the GDP contracts, the best case of Bonifacio is status quo, meaning it didn't fall with the GDP. I think Alabang is the best place to live. I think it's the best place to work in. I think the prices are irrationally discounted. I mean, how do you explain Forbes Park at 400,000 or Dasmariñas at 550,000 per square meter? And then you've got Ayala Alabang, which is the best village in the Philippines, I think, priced at 100,000 per square meter, 1/4 of what Makati is, or 1/5 compared to Dasma. That discount is irrational. It should be much closer to Makati prices, but it's not. The third reason is that the debt levels continue to be low. It's low in corporate, it's low in government. I mean, right now, from 39% GDP to debt ratio, the Philippines went from 39% to 51%, 52%, I think today. And even at that level, it's still one of the lowest in the world. Yes, we borrowed a lot at a very short span of time, like 9 months. We went from 39% to 52%, which is shocking many people. But the reality is, we're just making up for all the years that we didn't borrow money. We're making up for all the years that we did not do deficit management, deficit spending. We didn't do pump priming in the economy, very limited. And now we're about to do that.
You're so bullish on...
Optimistic
on Iloilo as a city that's emerging rapidly outside Manila. Is that still the case right now, December 2020? And how do you think it will fare also over the next few years up against other cities like Cebu, Davao, and other cities outside the metro?
So Iloilo, to me, and I've said this for the last 8 years, 10 years, that it is the best example of what happens when national government, local government, the business community, and the academe work hand in hand very closely together to transform society, the local government environment. You know, they had representatives in the Senate, they had representatives in Congress, and then you had all these retirees from Narslim to Rex Drilon and a few others who said, you know what? I've retired. I've made a successful run for the last 30 years of my working life. I'm now 65, 67, and I want to give back to my hometown. And I start with my own hometown. And 10 of them, 12 of them gathered together, all retired at the same time, and said, let's build this Iloilo Economic Development Council, and we'll lobby with Senate, lobby with Congress, lobby with President, right? These people have an amazing network. These people have global expertise and a level of excellence that is on par with any executive in the world, okay? And then, syempre, because they're so well connected, they made sure that the local government listened to them, and they used the academe's resources to upscale the skill levels of the people coming out of the colleges. I mean, prior to that, Iloilo was a one road city, Lacson Avenue. Everything was on Lacson Avenue, right? Now, my God, there was one hotel, the Sarabia Hotel, one hotel, and then half a hotel called Days Inn Hotel, which is like a 1-star, 2-star hotel. That was it. Today, the fastest growing hotel market in the Philippines outside of the Bay Area is Iloilo. And it's been like that for 5-6 years. And Iloilo produced a very famous billionaire called Injap Sia. And if you rode the stocks, well, I think you'd be smiling from year to year today. Iloilo has transformed, probably the most transformed location anywhere in the Philippines for the last, I would say, 8 years, 10 years. And you really have to give credit to the Iloilo Economic Development Council, to the people who run it. You have to give credit to Mayor Treñas, who did an amazing job working things out with Iloilo, and it's fantastic. It's really, really transformed. And then, of course, you've got the likes of SM and Mega World that have done a great job transforming Iloilo.
We've talked a lot about POGOs even prior to this pandemic, and we've seen a lot of movement over the past few months. How do you think this will also play out in terms of the properties that they're leasing and also the impact on residential, especially in Metro Manila?
I think it's quite unfortunate that this has happened to the POGO sector because, frankly, okay, there are moral issues attached to the industry, right? But the reality is that, number one, if you Google tax collection efficiency in the Philippines, do you know what the answer is? It is between 13% and 18%. Some articles will say 13%, some people will say 18%. The most is 18%. What does that mean? For every 100 pesos that they're supposed to collect, they're only collecting at the most 18 pesos. Okay? And most of that is from the local businessmen. Okay? Big and small have done everything to avoid and evade taxes illegally. Then you've got this sector that was offered a platform under PAGCOR, and then after that, we go to them and say, no, hindi pala PAGCOR yung dapat yung platform. Dapat ito lang yung BIR. Right? And then, you know what? Because you're making so much money, or I think you're making so much money, ito pa, dadagdagan pa natin yung mga tax base niyan. Right? So, from what should have been a tax base under PAGCOR, which most people in the POGO sector are complying with, right? Ito na, pinagpatong-patong natin lahat ng taxes. And then we said, okay, you either pay this or you shut down now. And then they say, you know what? Bye. And because of that, the POGO sector has shed something like 20%, 25% of all the space they occupy today, and another 20% of all the residential space which they occupy today, which is big, right? The economic impact of all that is gone, right? So you've got 1.4 billion in rents that have disappeared this year.
Wow.
Because 1.4 billion that could have been taxed.
Wow.
You've got construction projects in the next 6 years that are now thinking whether they should go ahead with these projects or stop it altogether or not even do it because they don't think anybody will lease this space. And then you've got a glut that is producing a dramatic drop in rentals, starting with the Bay Area, for office space that is not PEZA. So, and then you've got all these companies that used to feed off the POGO sector. For example, the telco sector, PLDT and Globe have so many clients in the POGO sector, right? I'm not just talking about the E1, T1 lines that the high bandwidth hard cables. I'm talking about cell phone use. I'm talking about data use. All those things, my God, they were paying, quite a lot of money to the telcos. And now all that's gone. And that's just the telco sector. What about the informal employees, like the drivers, the yayas, the janitors? The local market will pay their yaya 5,000 pesos a month on average. Okay, if you're in Forbes Park, maybe you'll pay them 20,000 pesos, right? ang dami pang kaltas, di ba? Galit ka pa kahit sa Forbes Park ka, right? But now these guys will say, okay, I'll pay you 20,000, 30,000 a month, plus pa. And then magreklamo yung mga tao na nawawalan daw sila ng yaya. I mean, you know, look at the economic benefits of that. And many others. The indirect employment in the POGO sector is pretty massive, and they're all jobless. And how, you know, if we don't like the POGO sector, then I think rather than hitting them hard and driving them out, we could have managed this in a better way so that the impact economically wasn't so severe. And we did it pa at the time of the lockdown. The time when we need jobs the most, ito pa nawalan pa itong sector na to. And in my estimates, maybe as much as 70,000-80,000 direct local jobs disappeared. I also feel bad when I hear locals saying, hey, you know, all these Chinese people are taking their jobs from them. And I go and say, you know, frankly, the POGO sector would rather employ locals. But the locals don't know how to speak Mandarin. I mean, I'm a local. I don't know how to speak Mandarin. If the locals are willing to go through the effort of learning a new language that will allow them a job in the POGO sector doing very little skills except the language for 60,000 pesos a month times 15 months plus. I mean, I would be very motivated to study Mandarin to get a job, right? But no. It's easier for us to kind of complain that these jobs are being taken away from us when, frankly, you guys don't qualify.
How does this impact the demand in terms of our rentals over the next few years, and then our trajectory of growth also? Because that has been factored in for the past years that POGO will drive prices over the next 2, 3, 4 years as well.
If we do not bring the POGOs back, it will be very difficult to find another industry that will backfill all the space that they're going to give up in the next few years. Okay? The only saving grace in the short term, which is the next 18 to 24 months, is that of the 540,000 square meters of space that's been vacated by different companies, half of that is POGO. So that's 60% of that is POGO, right? And of the 60% of that 60 of 60 is PEZA space. So the POGOs in the early POGOs that operated here occupied PEZA space. Now that they've vacated all that space in the tune of 300,000 square meters, which is a lot of space to be given up in just 4 months, that will now provide the relief for BPOs who badly need PEZA space. They want to expand in the Philippines, but they cannot get PEZA space in time when they need it, where they need it, how they need it. There's a deficit in PEZA space in the next 5 years, right, from today. And thankfully, the spaces vacated by the POGO sector that are PEZA is going to provide that relief to the BPO sector. So my take here is that for all the office landlords listening today, if you are PEZA, if you're a PEZA landlord, if you have PEZA space, just chill. You're going to have a great time because the PEZA space is 2 to 3 times oversubscribed. Meaning, for every 1 square meter of PEZA space you have vacant, there's 2 to 3 square meters of demand that want it. Okay? You might not be able to lease it today, but you will certainly lease it much sooner. The bad news is that there's a lot of space in the pipeline under construction that is not PEZA. Plus, there are a number of very large buildings that are completed today that are still 80-90% vacant for 1 year now, okay? Because they cannot get POGO, they cannot get PEZA, And so the only two industries you can get are the local conglomerates or multinationals, which are not growing now because of COVID, and the government. And frankly, the government is one of the least attractive tenants you can have, right? And at the time of COVID, all the money of the government, or a big chunk of the government's money, is geared towards addressing COVID. So they're not going to be committing to funds for fitting out your office and for paying new rent. So there will be a glut in non-peso space. And I'm happy to say that the conglomerates will not have that problem, because the conglomerates, most of the publicly listed developers, most of their stock is already pesa space. So I'm more concerned about the boutique developers, like they own 2 to 3 buildings, and many of them have ego projects, right? Who say, you know what, okay lang, I am beyond the economics of the market. You know, my sheer willpower and skills in business that helped me build my business all these years would propel me to success in the office sector. Well, sometimes yes, and sometimes no. And now is the time where you're getting no for an answer, because you know, there's no pesa, there's no pogo, there's no demand, very limited demand. So it's gonna take them much longer to lease out their building.
For those who don't know, which cities have been the most resilient and which cities have the most vacancies in terms of office spaces?
Bonifacio number 1, Makati number 2. And Bonifacio land prices have tracked the GDP for the last 20 years, right? And with only one exception. Every time the GDP contracts, the best case of Bonifacio is status quo, meaning it didn't fall with the GDP. It stayed flat. It held its ground, and then as soon as a recovery happens, the climb of prices have been faster than the growth of GDP. So it's been very safe to invest in BGC. The next best place is Makati. I would like to call out Alabang to be one of the next upcoming. If you're a value investor, it would be Alabang. And I don't know if some of you have heard me say this, but I've been saying this for 12 years now, 15 years. I think Alabang is the best place to live. I think it's the best place to work in. I think the prices are irrationally discounted. I mean, how do you explain Forbes Park at 400,000 or Dasmariñas at 550,000 per square meter? And then you've got Ayala Alabang, which is the best village in the Philippines, I think, priced at 100,000 per square meter, 1/4 of what Makati is, or 1/5 compared to Dasma. That discount is irrational. It should be much closer to Makati prices, but it's not.
Is it mainly because the luxury villages in Makati, in Green Hills, and in Quezon City are closely knit to the other cities, and Alabang feels so isolated to a lot of people? Or it's just really undervalued as of this point in time?
I realized that Alabang doesn't have a credible college, university. You go to the South, which part of the South will you send your kid to if you're an upper middle class person and above, right? Your thoughts are always the top 4. The Ateneo, UP Diliman, and then LaSalle, Taft, and then UANP, okay, and UST. Those are the top 4, top 5 universities, top of mind, right? If hindi sila makapasa, yung mga anak mo hindi makapasa sa 5 school na to, saka ka lang mag-consider ng ibang school, di ba? Lahat to naka-cluster sa University Belt ng Manila at University Belt ng Quezon City. Walang credit, nobody goes and thinks about, okay, I'm gonna send when my kids graduate, I'm going to send them to UP Los Baños unless they are going to grow weed or go into agriculture, which is an excuse for them to grow weed.
Okay. Okay.
We all laugh about it, right? But that's the truth.
Got it. I want to transition to this. We talked about this extensively the past videos, but how's retail right now? Given that the last time we did it, Metro Manila was in ECQ, then MECQ, then brought back once again. But now I've seen more people go out starting November. More people are either more confident that they won't get hit, or they're just going out and they're just more careful. How do you see this moving forward, and how has it been?
First time that Balisin opened, my God, all the housewives got together and said, okay, bye guy, I'm going with my girlfriends to Balisin at huwag kang makisawsaw dito. Bye. Goodbye. Goodbye ulit. Your next week. And Aman Polo, the same thing. Nobody said, hey, it's open na. Let's go as a couple. No, nobody said let's go as a couple. Or maybe reluctantly, they said, oh, sige na nga, let's go as a couple. Pero it's COVID fatigue. And people just need another environment to get out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the seniors and below 18 people are still prohibited from really going around. So mall foot traffic went from 100% in February to 0 from March all the way through to August. And it crawled its way to 10%. And I'm happy to say that now, as in December, second week, 2020, the numbers are anywhere between a low of 35% to as much as 75% pre-COVID numbers. And most of that happened just since October. That is not so much because people are becoming reckless. It is because they are getting insane. And they just need a new platform to socialize with other people. That is driven by basic human nature. And so when the government starts clamping down on people, I really hope they take it more kindly, right? And they wouldn't be too quick to judge, because really people are going insane in the house. Next is that Christmas is the most powerful spirit in the Philippine culture. It is more powerful than Halloween. It is more powerful than Thanksgiving, because we don't know what that is, because turkeys are too big. Manok hanggang sabong lang tayo. And it is bigger than Valentine's. People will spend money. Even if they don't have any more money, they will find a way to spend money. And they will live the Christmas spirit, because they have been deprived of the Christmas spirit since September. September 1 pa lang Christmas spirit na dito sa Philippines. We're not allowed to celebrate it, diba? And yes, there will be another wave because of all these gatherings. We can't help it. Matigas talagang puso ng Pilipino, And fortunately, right around that corner after the next wave hits, I don't know, I lost count now. Is it the 6th wave, the 7th wave? I don't know anymore. But whenever that wave comes, at least sometime in January, when those numbers hit us, right? A few months na lang, nandyan yung vaccine. Whether it's Sputnik, Sinovac, Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, the vaccines will be out. And right now, second week December 2020, we only have 3 Western vaccines plus Sinovac plus Sputnik, right? By January, Feb, March, April, every month that passes, new companies will have their version of the vaccine approved, allowed, safe, tested, and manufactured. And so the rollout for the vaccines of whatever form will be out there. And I'm happy to say that in one of the interviews I've seen from Bill Gates, he said that you don't really need to vaccinate 100%. You don't even need 50%. You just need to vaccinate the first 30-35%. Because the 35% vaccinated, the other 35% are somehow developing some sort of immunity. And the combination of the vaccinated and the immune are going to slow down the virus significantly. And we should have comfort in that. I don't think anybody there has said, wow, the station has really added to the project feasibility, right? If ever any did benefit, it's marginal, right? It's not really because of the train. If you look at the very famous MRT 3 or whatever, one, I don't know, I lost count, but the one on EDSA, I don't think anybody is saying, wow, the train was a big contributor to the success of this project. SMDC might, but frankly, I don't think the commuters of the train line are the same ones that are buying or renting in the condos.